Greetings, vinyl community. I have never made a video like this before, but I thought it sounded like fun and it might be something that I could contribute to. The theme is Show Your Progressive Rock Record Collection. So let's follow the 20 prompts and you will see what I have chosen to highlight. So the first question is, what was the first album that got you into prog rock? For me, that was Yessongs. It was 30 years ago, actually, this summer, in summer of 1991, that I fished through some boxes of albums that my much older siblings had left behind when they moved out of the house, and I was a teenager at that point. And I was familiar with Pink Floyd at that point. I knew all of Pink Floyd's music that they had put out up until that point. So I could deal with long pieces of music. I could deal with instrumentals. I could deal with, I could deal with a lot because of Pink Floyd. I was ready, So maybe it wasn't too unprecedented, but I had never heard anything like this. I had never heard a band play like that. I had never heard different kinds of music colliding in the same space like that. I put the needle down on side one, and by the end of side one, I thought a totally different way about music. I wanted something completely different from music. And this album is responsible for my life chasing that feeling again and again. And yeah, good stuff. Okay, the next question is, show an album with 4 songs or less. I am going to Spain for this one, and I'm going to select Ciclos by Canarios. This is a double album with 4 songs, one of those ones, right? 1 long track per side. Musically, it is very loosely based on themes from Vivaldi's 4 Seasons. So it's a prog rock reimagining of the 4 Seasons, as reimagined as telling the story of someone's life, right? It's imagined. That's the concept album aspect of this. So this is really over the top. It's classical, it's rock, it's completely berserk, and yeah, it's good stuff. You should check it out. It's from 1974. The band is Canarios. The album is Ciclos. Epic stuff. Fantastic. Show an album on the Vertigo label. I could have gone with any of the first 3 Jade Warrior records, but I'm going to go with the third one. This is Last Autumn's Dream. They did excellent work after this too, but it's quite different and it's not on Vertigo. But I think I like this one the best because it's got kind of a little bit of everything on there. It's got kind of a good rocker on it. It's got some fun. It's got some beautiful songwriting. It's got beautiful soundscapes. Jade Warrior does not sound like any other progressive rock band that I can tell you about. They're not like one of the symphonic bands, but they are quite distinctly prog, and there is the wonderful Vertigo label that we all love so much. And so that's my selection for that. And now, show an album with epic keyboards. I have chosen Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, which might be kind of a choice, but because Rick Wright wasn't really a virtuoso. However, he was great at choosing sounds and textures and thinking of just the right note to play. And on this album in particular, or maybe this album exceptionally, his keyboards are the earth, the ocean, the trees, the sky, the wind, the air. His keyboards create the world and the universe in which the other instruments and voices live, right? It gives the color, the contour, the texture, and the context for everything that's happening on this record, except for maybe the title song. Rick Wright was a supremely egoless player, and I think that shows on this record, and it is astonishing, the world he creates with his keyboards on this album. All right. Show an album that makes you ask, is this prog? I'm picking Horslips, Book of Invasions, a Celtic symphony. This is really Irish rock, you know, and it's really good, but the way that the album is structured and the way that the arrangements are structured scratches a lot of those prog itches, you know, with the sort of the sense of a narrative arc or a sort of thematic arc and recurring musical motifs that kind of tie everything together. Yeah, I don't think that they thought they were a prog band. I don't think they thought they were making a prog album, but there's enough quality music and musicianship on here to convince a prog fan that they're listening to a prog album. So, show a prog album from a German band. I'm going to show Grobschnitt, Rockpommel's Land. This is not quite a typical Grobschnitt album. Usually I associate them with music that's a bit more molten and a little bit more raw. This is more kind of pastel keyboards, you know, nice major chords. It's a very smooth album, but it's a very childlike album. It's supposed to be, I guess. It's a concept album about a child who, you know what, I'm not even going to go into the story. Yeah, it's a good album. It's not quite what Grobschnitt does normally, but it's a fine album, and it's probably their most symphonic prog in nature. So it's good stuff. So if you're young at heart, if you're a child at heart, if you like puppet shows and cartoons and stuff like that, you might like this record. Or if you just like taking huge amounts of hippie drugs, you might like this album. That's supposed to be a compliment, by the way. Okay, so show a prog album from the UK. Wow. How do you even pick, you know? But I have picked Robert Wyatt, Rock Bottom. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. The music is... Wow. How do you describe it? I mean, it's peculiar, it's idiosyncratic, but it's lush and it's beautiful, and you might even crack a smile a few times. Yeah. This record came into my life after I had had some very minor surgery and had been given a prescription for codeine syrup. So I was drinking a lot of codeine syrup, putting on the headphones and listening to this record, and it was quite a lovely way to transport myself into a healing space. This is very much a sound bath and a big hug of a record. It's not a big smiley face of a record. It has its pain that it works through in a very graceful way. And that's part of what makes this such a soulful record, as well as a beautiful record and an indispensable record. Robert Wyatt, Rock Bottom. So a prog album from the US. Actually, I've heard this question phrased different ways by different people that have answered this post. And some people have just interpreted as prog album from the United States. Other people have interpreted it as a prog album from America, meaning North America or South America, or both. So I'm going to cover all the bases that I can. So for US prog, I'm going to take something pretty obscure. I'm going to go with Micah, I'm Only One Man from 1970. This is a continuous song cycle, continuous suite of songs. I believe this was recorded in one take. It's very organ heavy. The musicianship is good. The vocals are good. The vocal harmonies are good. The playing is good all around. And then it's a shame that they didn't get to maybe develop it a little further. I think that the second half of the album maybe falls down a little bit. Could have been developed a little better. But all in all, definitely a little bit ahead of the curve, certainly for an American band. I'm Only One Man by Micah from 1970. Moving a little farther north, I'm going to go to Canada for the next one. This is Harmonium The title of the album is in French, and I'm not going to ruin it by saying it wrong, because I'm going to say it wrong if I try. So, but I believe that the title translates to "If There Were Need for a Fifth Season." The thing that makes prog fans drool over this particular record is the long track that takes up most of side 2. What is it? Song Without Words, I think is this called. Histoire sans parole. See, I don't make me speak French. I can't do it. I'm just embarrassing myself. It's Mellotron heaven, right? This is just, it's very pretty music. It's not shreddy music. It's not gonna like make you go, wow, that guy can really play. But it's very pretty. And it's a nice soundtrack for a daydream. So that's a good one there. For South America, I'm going to go to Bolivia for Estrella de Marzo. This sounds like it was probably knocked out in an afternoon, you know, very cheap, very quick. The vocalist was either intimidated or just not up for it. Maybe he was just having a bad day. But the music itself is pretty nice. It has some sort of rocking parts, which are maybe a little not so interesting. But when it gentles itself down and tries to go for this sort of ghostly sort of organ thing, this kind of ghostly celestial organ thing, it renders some better results. There's a track on here called Claro Dia. That's quite nice. I believe this record is even on Spotify if you wanted to check that track out. I wish I could tell you more about this band, but I don't, you know, my ability to learn more about them is compromised by the fact that I can't read the language. So, but this is my selection for South America, Estrella de Marzo. Kind of maybe a C+ album, but not bad. Well, C. But still worth maybe your time a little bit. Okay, a gateway prog album. So an album that could get people into prog. This might be a little bit controversial, but I have chosen Rush Hemispheres. And hear me out, because I do have a way of thinking about this. Now, I know that Rush are a pretty polarizing band, because not a lot of people can hear Geddy Lee's voice and not have some immediate reaction one way or another to it. Okay, I acknowledge that. So how can it be a credible gateway album if the sound of the singer might turn you off? Okay, so my thinking about this is that if you like the music you hear on this record, you can follow your progressive rock journey into a number of different directions from here. You can take it chronologically forward into the heavier prog metal stuff. You can take it chronologically in reverse into the more symphonic stuff. You can take it into the song-based stuff. You can take it into instrumentally based stuff. If your appetite is whet by the music you hear on this record, you can go in a lot of different directions into progressive music and really have a ball. And so I think that Rush Hemispheres, and also this was my gateway into Rush. So I really love this album, and I always will. So Rush Hemispheres is my gateway prog album. All right, show an album that features Bill Bruford on drums. Now, people have been showing selections from multiple bands across multiple decades. I will do my best to accommodate that. So for the 60s, I'm going to say the first Yes album, because that's what else did he do in the 60s? He did the first Yes album. That's what he did. So that's that. And then I'm going to jump forward into the 70s with King Crimson, and I'm going to go with Starless and Bible Black. I'm choosing this particular album not only because he does a great drum performance throughout, but he also does a great non-performance throughout. He got a songwriting credit on the improvisation called Trio because he had the sense not to play. Way to go, Bill. So an excellent performance and an excellent non-performance on this album from Bill Bruford. So moving into the 80s, I'm going to maybe cheat a little bit because I don't have any 80s King Crimson on vinyl. So I'm going to go to Bruford, Gradually Going Tornado. The reason this might be a cheat is because arguably this is just a straight jazz fusion record, so maybe I'm just SOL on finding an 80s installment for Bill Bruford for a progressive rock album from the 80s. Well, I guess that wouldn't be true because I could have shown Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe. But if I showed Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe, I would kind of blow my load for my 90s selection, which is the dreaded Yes Union album, in which his Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe performances were cobbled into a Yes album for the sake of a tour. Bill Bruford is on record as saying that this is the single worst album that has ever borne his name. But I don't think it's that bad. Good Lord. So show a concept album. Orme, Felona and Sorona. This is not the Italian original. This is the English language remake, but it is still quite good. The music is, I was almost going to pick this for my Epic Keyboards album. Very symphonic, very dynamic, but also melodic and emotional, a bit romantic, but really good, really sensitive with making atmospheres too on this record. So yeah, really, really good stuff. Listen to it if you can. Orme, Felona, and Sorona. Oh, what is the concept of this concept album? Brother and sister planets and a god that likes one more than the other until the moment comes when God changes its attention from one to the other. You know, one flourishes and then the other freezes, and then the other goes from freezing to flourishing, and then the other kind of just withers, and then they both blow up, I guess? I don't really know. Don't ask me to explain prog rock concept albums. It's not an easy thing to do. Okay, so the next thing is show an album with a female singer. I have to admit that my mind first went to Annie Halsum and Renaissance, but that's not actually my favorite vocal performance from a female on a progressive rock album. That goes to Dagmar Krause on Henry Cow's In Praise of Learning. This album is amazing. First of all, if you've never heard it, very abrasive, really dark, really intense, partly freeform improv, partly strictly composed. I can't really liken it to anything but itself. And Dagmar Krause, her voice puts across the sort of angry but abstract but political lyrics. She puts them across very well. You really feel it. So I can't imagine anybody else doing that with this particular set of lyrics on this record. So Dagmar Krause on Henry Cow's In Praise of Learning is my female prog selection there. All right, show a prog album by a person who was in a band and went solo. I'm going to go with Steve Hillage, Fish Rising. He had been in Gong. This actually sounds like a continuation of the work he had done in Gong, and in fact has many of the same musicians on it. If you like cosmic, jazzy, lighthearted, but very head-trippy rock, man, this is your jam. Do it. Fish Rising by Steve Hillage. Okay, show your favorite Roger Dean cover art. I don't think this is his best cover art. I think technically he has done much better work, but I do like the color palette of this cover, and I think that the scene that it depicts is exciting to the imagination. So I'm going to go with Uriah Heep, The Magician's Birthday. I mean, look at that. Right? I mean, it's crazy, right? What the fuck is this dude? Oh, I'm sorry, I said a bad word. What the heck is that dude right there? And this creature here, and I mean, it's a lot going on. Lots going on. It's kind of archetypal Roger Dean, and you know, not really well done as far as Roger Dean work goes, but the colors and the scene itself make it kind of a magic picture for me. So that's my selection for that. All right, so a Prog album from 1971. So 50-year anniversary, we've got Van der Graaf Generator, Pawn Hearts. Intense music, very angst-ridden lyrics. It's kind of a shame that something that had this much angst 50 years ago still speaks to the pain in the human spirit in 2021, but there you have it. There's a remixed version of this album that's coming out later this summer that I have pre-ordered and I'm anxiously awaiting, so this is a really good one. I'm sure everybody watching this already knows this one, but if you haven't, you got to hear it. Van der Graaf Generator, Pawn Hearts. All right, so a live album. Genesis Live. This is from 1974, so it's still fairly early in their career. I've got too much cellophane going. I like the fact that it's that phase in their career where they're still like playing universities to like kids that are just kind of sitting on the floor, and their staging is like a curtain and some black lights and Peter Gabriel in some pretty homemade looking costumes. You know, this is them in their sort of punk rock phase. The thing that's so amazing, you know, they're jamming Econo. This is Genesis jamming Econo era. The thing that strikes me about this record now is Mike Rutherford's bass performance is so busy. He plays a lot of notes on the bass. I think he probably plays more notes on the bass than Steve Hackett does on the lead guitar. I haven't counted them. That is just my suspicion. What do you think? So that's my selection for a live album. And it's really good, actually, quite good. The version of The Knife on here rocks really hard. It's excellent stuff. Probably the closest that Genesis ever came to metal, except for maybe Dancing with the Moonlit Night. Okay, the last Prog album that I picked up was this Canadian pressing of Gryphon, Raindance. Gryphon is a band that's mostly known for playing sort of like Renaissance fair type progressive rock, you know, which is really good. I like it. This is a little bit more on the prog rock side, a little less Ren fair than their usual stuff. The thing that's interesting about this pressing, though, is that the labels are wrong, or there's a problem on the labels. The song titles are right, but they have the wrong album title. Red Queen to Gryphon 3 was actually the album that Gryphon did prior to this one. So they screwed up the labels on that one. But the rest of it, this is quite a good record, and that is actually the most recent prog rock purchase that I made. So we're getting down to the end here. We're getting close. Show a prog album from the last 25 years. I have picked the Mars Volta, Deloused in the Comatorium. I think this is a great album in that it hits pretty much everything that you want from progressive rock, but it does it in a entirely contemporary musical idiom. It's not a retro trip. It doesn't really sound like anything but the Mars Volta. And I don't think they even knew they were making a prog rock album when they made this. I think they knew they were making a mind blower, but I don't think they knew they were making a prog album. I definitely, after that, I know they were making prog albums on purpose. Francis the Mute is an intentional prog album. This is an accidental prog album, but it's still damn amazing prog rock. Deloused in the Comatorium by the Mars Volta. Show an album with a great guitar solo. My choice for that is Focus 3. Now, you can really pick any album that Jan Ackerman plays on, and you're going to get a lot of amazing guitar solos, but I'm actually picking this for something a lot simpler. I'm picking this for the track Sylvia, which is 3.5 minutes long, instrumental, led by a really wonderful guitar melody. I just love the guitar melody of Sylvia. It kind of does the singing for the singer. They didn't have a singer, really, but well, they sort of did. But anyway, so yeah, Sylvia on Focus 3 is my selection for a guitar solo. Now, the last question, what is at the top of my prog rock want list? I would love a vinyl copy of Anglegarde Epilogue. I would love a copy of Jezda Urfa's Boris LP, and I'm never going to get them because they are very, very expensive and in distant lands that I will never venture to. But aside from that, you know what I think might be cool? I think it would be cool to have an early test pressing of Tales from Topographic Oceans. By early, I mean like an original test pressing, not one from one of the 180 gram things that they've been putting out, or the Steven Wilson thing. I want like an actual test pressing of Topographic Oceans. Don't ask me why, I just think that would be cool. Or Close to the Edge. I would definitely accept a test pressing of Close to the Edge. The only test pressing I have in my collection is for Steve Hackett Voyage of the Acolyte. Just because, I mean, that's one of my favorite albums of all time. It's a magic record, and to have kind of that early artifact version of it was just sort of thrilling to me as just a fan. So I'd love to have something like that for one of those classic early Yes records. So anyway, that's what I got. Thank you if you made it with me this far. Thank you. And leave a comment if you want, or like if you want. But whether you want to or not, have a good day. Thank you.